Illusions, the power to shape reality to my will, to confound, to confuse, to befuddle. My existence is but clay that I may shape at will with only my imagination as its limit. I summon an illusory Carl intro.
Savage World, one of the best games of the game.
What's up, savages? This is Tabletop Tango. I'm your host, Eric. Please like, subscribe, push all those illusory buttons. We really appreciate it. So today's topic is going to be a deep dive into the power of illusion and the power of illusion. I want to shout out the viewer Mike Walsh 875 who actually recommended this topic. So yeah, we love recommendations, and I'm always happy to cover powers, arcane backgrounds, stuff from Savage Pathfinder, whatever. I like deep diving stuff. So just, if it has something on your mind, let us know. Anyways, let's get to it. We're going to go really deep into the power illusion. Now, illusions just in general in tabletop role-playing games can definitely be kind of a difficult thing to really get the hang of. You definitely experienced GMs really understand the power of illusion and its flexibility, its immersion with the game world, the way you can interact with everything. It's just unparalleled. And so we're going to talk about the Savage Worlds version of that. So very first thing is let's actually just get right into what the main power does. Okay. So illusion is a novice power. It is 3 power points, so a little bit expensive for a novice power. And basically, you can use it to create a visual scene of anything that you want. But it can't interact in any way. It doesn't make sound, so it can't. If you make something that like a boulder that's rolling or something, it's just going to go right through people. A sword is going to go right through somebody, and it won't ever make any noise. Just a visual scene of some type of image, or it can be moving. It just has to be visual only. Okay, and then let's talk about the actual here's some more mechanics, is that any who contact an illusion or doubt it's real makes a smarts roll as a free action with a -2 if the power was activated with the raise, and if that's successful, then the individual is no longer subject to this casting. So there's actually a lot to break down in this one little paragraph. First, let's talk about disbelieving illusion. So there's 2 ways. The easy way to get behind this is if you've contacted the illusion. Anytime anybody's touched it or attacks it, there is a caveat here in that you'll see later that the illusion has to fit within a medium blast template. So when we're talking about contacting the illusion, we're not talking about contacting that medium blast template. We're talking about contacting the actual visual manifestation that's been created. Okay, and so that's really easy, right? Contacting an illusion. Now, the other part of doubting that it's real, that's the part that is extremely nebulous. It's going to rely or differ a lot depending on your game master, how lenient they are, how creative you've been. But we'll get into more specifics later on, but very briefly here, if you're doing things that are just completely out of place, if you're doing things that don't make sense, if the illusions themselves aren't making sense, then that's obviously going to cause a roll. Here we're talking about intelligent enemies are going to be much more likely to try to disbelieve an illusion. Enemies with animal intelligence are, generally should not roll to disbelieve that often. Eventually they might if it keeps being weirder and weirder, but just as a recommendation for me to game masters, if it's an animal intelligence enemy, they're probably not going to recognize that it's illusion. They're going to take those things for granted, right? That it's reality, because they're just in that survival mode much more strongly than we are as intelligent people. So, so just be more lenient with animal intelligent enemies. That can really range as far as what is disbelieving. But like I said, we'll get more into this later. Also, the free action part there, if just a quick reminder that free actions can be on other people's turns, meaning that you can take free action as a reaction if something calls for it. In this case, it would. So if you are doing something weird with your illusion and that's causing somebody to disbelieve it, then they can actually make that roll on their turn as a free action. And vice versa, you as a player, right? You don't have to wait for your turn to make the roll to disbelieve. It can be on the thing's turn that's causing you to roll, if that makes sense. And there's the range part. And then finally, if successful, the individual is no longer subject to this casting. The this part of that is very important. So once they've disbelieved the illusion, they just don't, they recognize this illusion. It doesn't affect them. They can move through it. It doesn't stop them. They don't believe it, right? But you can then cast other illusions that they will be still subject to. The problem here is that, like, kind of like test, the repetition here will be your enemy. I mean, once they realize there's illusions happening, then, they're going to be much quicker to try to disbelieve your illusions. And eventually they might just automatically disbelieve it. So, we can, as game masters, this is just going to be, it's going to be easier. They might have less of a, if the negative was -2 because they got a raise, it might just be a straight roll, or they might have a +2. Like, the more the illusions start happening, the less likely it's going to stick, right? Finally, the GM should make group rolls for extras, because as they point stuff out to each other, group rolls again are just we roll the smarts die of enemies, and this is enemies that are similar or the same in a group. You'd roll their smarts die plus a wild die, and this just this just represents them, a bunch of them. That's the D6, the wild die. And I also want to point out here then, when we're talking about doubting it again, if they have a reason to doubt it, one of the enemies, if they're intelligent, if they doubt it successfully, then them calling out to other enemies could be another way that those enemies then get to make a roll. It shouldn't be automatic, but that's another way for them to be like, okay, this is a reason I don't think it's real because my friend's telling me it's not real, right? So that's just another way for them to disbelieve it. And then finally, we have the volume of the illusion must fit within a medium blast template. And so, again, this is the volume of it, so you can kind of mess with the dimensions here. Note that you don't have to make the medium blast template kind of on the ground. It can be up in the air, so you can get your 4 inches, because there's a 2-inch radius. Your 4 inches, 8 yards of height, 8 inches of width, of whatever creature or object or whatever you're doing. So that's illusions in a nutshell, the basics of it. Here I just want to, before we get into the mods part, I want to talk a little bit about some of the limitations of illusion. And this is something that comes up a lot with illusion, especially in reference to especially in something I'm going to reference right now, but basically you cannot duplicate another power using illusion. Now, this comes up a lot more in superhero companions as far as powers duplicating other powers, but in our case, you cannot use illusion to duplicate another power, and the biggest example of this is the disguise power, right? The disguise power, while not always an illusion trapping, is often illusion trapping, and you would think that with using the power of illusion, you could kind of do what disguise does, but no, the rules do not allow that. So you cannot use illusion to disguise, make somebody, you or your friend, make somebody look and sound, and we'll get to the sound later, but look and sound like somebody else, right? And they can move around. It's like they're wearing a disguise, but it's magical. It's better than just, some makeup and a hat or something, whatever. A Mission Impossible mask. It's a magical disguise, or whatever your trapping is. So illusion cannot do that, okay? So we know that it can't duplicate disguise, but what illusion can do is it can replicate powers' effects. So what I mean by that is that while we can't use illusion to disguise, right, and let's have a scenario here. We want to get past a gatehouse, there's a couple guards, and we want to make ourselves, look like, we want to have the guard captain have our, give the go-ahead to have our friends join, right? So with disguise, we could make us, or the bard or whatever, look like the guard captain, and they could be like, hey, let me in, these weird group of a tiefling and I don't know, an elf and a gnome and a dwarf come through, right? And the guards are like, cool, you're the guard captain. So while we can't do that with illusion, what we can do with illusion is make a facsimile of the guard captain, right? We can make an illusory image of the guard captain. Again, we would use the sound. We'll get to the mods later, but so if you get what I'm saying here, we can kind of replicate the effects, right? It's not going to be as good. They're never really going to be as good as the core powers. So just even looking at disguise, right? Illusion costs 3 points, 4 points with the sound mod, and that's okay. So it's 2 points for disguise. Disguise lasts 10 minutes. Disguise it's much harder to disbelieve disguise base, and with disguise, somebody can touch the person and they're not going to disbelieve it, right? When the guards go in for the predator handshake, they're not going to disbelieve it. So you can just see that disguise is better. Now, there's a lot of examples of this, like invisibility. While we can't use illusion to make somebody invisible, we can use illusion to make an obstruction that people can hide behind. Same thing, just like barrier, right? We can make barrier, we can make a wall with barrier. We can hide behind as well. They can also block attacks and damage people and all that stuff. While illusion can make a barrier, and we can hide behind it, like with barrier, it can't actually block people, right? If they disbelieve it. Same thing with like sound silence, where we can make an illusion that will distract people, or maybe make sounds. Again, with the sound mod, it's not going to do what sound silence does. We're not going to be able to just get rid of noise and all that stuff. And like the thing with barrier, right? While we can't block things off, it does kind of the same thing. So in combat, we can pretend we're an earth mage, cast an illusory wall. While the people are not actually blocked, they might, not want to go. They might want to go around the wall, spending their turn, using up their pace getting around the wall. So we've delayed them for a turn. So kind of similar to what barrier does. When we're in a city running from guards, we can create an image of the city wall, right, to hide behind. While with barrier, we could do that, but it'd probably be noticeable, because if you see, the power of illusion here is its flexibility. So no matter what the actual trapping of where your illusions come from, you can make them look like anything. So it is the ultimate, like, every trapping power in a way. Because like an earth mage, while they could create an earth wall in that town running from the guards are going to see an earth wall there and going to know that, okay, they're probably behind that. But with illusion, we can create a wall that looks like, a building or a city. It's going to fit in, right? Now the guards might know that alley that we're hiding in and be like, wait a minute, I swear there wasn't a wall here. They might go and touch it or try to disbelieve it, but we just have that flexibility. So yeah, so it's about replicating effects, not duplicating powers, if that makes sense. Okay, let's get right into the mods. So first mod we have is the sound mod. It's 1 power point. As you can see, we can make our illusions sound like anything. They can be loud, right? But the caveat here is that it cannot mask or mute existing sounds. That's what sound silence does. So while we could make a tiger in the jail, to distract the guards while our friends are lockpicking, they're going to still hear the lockpicking even if they're chasing the roaring tiger away. With sound silence, you can make a sound that's really loud that might cover up that sound of lockpicking, or you can silence it, right? So again, it's that flexibility, but we can't actually duplicate what sound silence does. But sound, this is an essential mod. It's 90% of the time you cast illusions, you're going to be using this. So really, in my mind, illusion is basically a 4-point power, not a 3-point power, because a lot of the time you're going to want to be using sound. Okay, so strong. This is the last mod found in the core Suede. Smarts rolls of disbelief are made at a -2. So expensive at 2 power points. This is something, strong mod got left out of a lot of powers when Suede came out. A lot of debuffs and stuff, but it is important here, especially when you're really relying on an illusion to accomplish something. Like in a tense social situation, or in that guard captain, you're hiding from guards. That wall's going to be really important, especially if it's against a single person or like 2 people, right? Then having that strong mod is going to be more important, because if that one person disbelieves it, then that's your whole power is useless, right? When there's a lot of people, it's maybe not as strong. Now, they don't mention this here, while they mention this in some other powers. Does this stack with that raise effect? So if you got a raise, it's a -2 to disbelieve. Now, they don't say it. My belief is that that is the intention, and even if it's not, it should always stack, because raises should matter, and you spending power points should matter, right? So this should always stack. So if you cast this, and again, this is probably what they intended, and I could just be, maybe other people don't question this as much as I do, but it should definitely stack. So if you got the raise and did this, it's a -4. Okay, so now we're going on to the Fantasy Companion mods. Starting up area effect. So 1 power point, a large burst template. This is huge. This really increases our flexibility with making bigger creatures, making bigger items. So really important thing here to have. And I wish they had a mega mod that was like, you could do even gargantuan stuff, outside of the burst templates. They don't have that here. Something that I might even give as a game master, a mega power mod for that. But anyways, the first of the mega power mods, and this one is a Woozy. This is Deadly Illusions for 3 power points. This really, again, we'll discuss what we can do in combat a little bit later. This really enables you to, if you're an illusionist, allows you to use your illusions in combat. So the illusions can attack or otherwise harm. So attack is like a creature. Harm might be a rolling boulder, right? that's rolling around, or like a fireball that's just moving around, right? It doesn't have to be a creature necessarily. But you use your action to make a quote-unquote attack, and this is an opposed roll, so it's your arcane skill versus the target smarts, and a -2 if it was cast with a raise. Now, I want to say here that the strong modifier should not apply here, because they're not technically disbelieving it, but yeah, so it's this opposed roll. This is kind of like banishment against people, because when you win, if the caster wins, you shake them. This cannot cause incapacitation. But if you have a raise, the target suffers a wound, which can cause incapacitation. So you've mind freaked them so hard, they've punched themselves in the face and knocked themselves out. Okay? You can use multi-actions with this, just to attack over and over again, but you can't use special things like called shots or wild attacks. I would also assume here that it's not technically a creature, so you can't use this to make like free attacks, like if somebody leaves melee, but that's up to your game master. A lot of stuff with this power is honestly up to your game master, so don't hit me at the comments, unless you really know, but I've checked forums. I like here they say that you can't use called shots, though it may look that way. And that's a really important point, too, as far as illusions. The way that you narrate things can have a big effect on what you want to get out of it. So in our case here about wild attacks, say I've created an illusory barbarian with the deadly illusions, and I'm saying he's coming up with this big axe, and he makes this powerful yell and just makes this huge swing and overextends himself, and whether he's hit and done damage or not, he's overextended so much that he's, jammed his axe into a wall, leaving his back exposed. And that's how I've narrated it to the GM. And why would I want to do that? Well, maybe I want to cause damage, but I also want to get the heat off of my squishy scholar, aloof scholar that's kind of wandered in. Shout out to Morgan. She always plays, yeah, anyways. Aloof scholar who's wandered in, getting hit, and I want to kind of take some of the focus off her. So I'm like, hey, GM, this barbarian came in, overextended themselves, and it's just wide open to get hit. So, that's where you're kind of narrating the illusion, and that's with everything in these games, but especially with your illusions, the way that you narrate it can have a big impact. So that's Deadly Illusions. Very big here. It expands your stuff greatly, but again, it's a mega power mod, so it comes in late. 3 power points coming in late. The Illusionist arcane background in fantasy solves that just gives you, it basically buffs the hell out of illusion. I used it before, it was awesome. But anyways, yeah, Deadly Illusion. Let's move on to the next megapod, Duration. It's now measured in minutes. This is, even to my opinion, bigger than the last one. Now you have 5 minutes. So this makes it so if you're using Deadly Illusion or using them in combat, you get it maybe between combats. This is huge for narrative scenes, exploration scenes. So when you're like doing it like a social conflict or a dramatic task or a chase, now your illusions are viable, because often those things are not in, 6-second rounds. They're in like longer rounds. So this actually enables you to use your illusions in that kind of case without just spending all of your power points, right? So absolutely humongous here. That's the end of the Mega Power mods. Now we have the final mod for the Fantasy Companion, and this one, again, is the doozy. This is honestly, to me, the biggest one out of all of them. Mobility. Oh, because one thing I forgot to mention before is that when you make your illusion, okay, and it fits in that medium blast template, you technically can't move them. Again, your game master might rule differently, but you technically can't move them. Yeah, they have to kind of stay within that medium blast template. So while you can create a creature that is kind of moving around, right, it's going to stay within that realm of that medium blast template. You can't actually move it around. And that creates a lot of problems when we're talking about creatures especially. In my example of the guard captain, one of the things about disbelieving illusions is like, if you want to make this illusory facsimile of the guard captain, just creating them in front of those guards is going to be bad. They're going to instantly roll to disbelieve, right? Because they know the guard captain can't teleport. So in this case, with mobility, kind of something like you can do with disguise is you could create that, creature off screen. You can create the guard captain off screen, like behind a wall or whatever, around the corner, and then have him walk up so it looks natural, right? Then they're not going to maybe roll to disbelieve. So mobility is huge. Also, it's good with Deadly Illusion is that now they can move around. So, again, it seems the base power, and a lot of game masters are going to rule differently. The illusion can't actually move from where you cast it, because it doesn't say, hey, you can move it at a 6 pace, right? So maybe the game master will allow you to do that at base, and this just kind of doubles movement, but technically, I think raw, the illusion can't move. So this is how you allow them to move. And this just greatly increases your capabilities, not just in combat, out of combat too. And just one power point for 12 inches is enough. 2 power points, probably not going to be needed that much, but to be able to fly as well is humongous. Now, there's one thing I forgot to mention, going back to Deadly Illusions. So as far as Deadly Illusion is concerned, there's a couple of caveats here that I forgot to mention, is that when you're actually, when you first cast Illusion with the Deadly Illusion, you should be allowed to attack that first turn. Kind of like when you summon an ally immediately, you don't have to like wait another turn for them to do their thing. The same thing with this, because it's a lot of power points, and you know, we'll talk about how you get rid of them in a second, but it might be got rid of just after that first round. And so that would suck that you wouldn't be able to actually do the thing you want to do with it before you get to use it, you know? So enable the person when they cast it, kind of like telekinesis too. When you cast Deadly Illusion, you get to do a thing immediately, right? So yeah, you get to do like one attack at that same time, or a multi-attack if you say ahead of time, right? And then just be a -2 for the activation roll. Secondly, about disbelieving these. So when it attacks, you know, technically you could say it's making contact, but that should not trigger disbelieve. That's kind of being the, I don't know, that's kind of being actuated in the oppose roll, you know, for causing damage. Even though a failure on that doesn't actually cause them to disbelieve. It just wouldn't make sense for like every time you attack with this, you're constantly getting disbelieve rolls. That would just suck. But when something attacks it, then absolutely it's making contact and they should get that roll to disbelieve. Now, whether it's just an automatic hit, like they say, okay, the NPC is attacking this illusory Deadly Illusion, and it's just automatic, so I roll automatically to disbelieve. That's up to the game master. So it could just be automatic. How I've played it and been played is we consider it like a parry of 2, kind of like an object. So they're probably going to hit it, but just, you know, if they roll a critical failure, they just happen to miss. If you're more lenient, your GM is being more lenient, then a parry of 4 wouldn't be crazy. And another thing to even be more lenient is you kind of give it a parry based on the arcane skill. So if you have a D8 in spellcasting or something, it might be a 6 parry, right? Half plus 2. So just wanted a little bit more stuff with Deadly Illusion. Okay, I know I'm going fast, but I didn't want to make a super long video trying to get through a lot of stuff. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about the universal mods, just kind of what applies and what doesn't. I made a video all about Uni Mods. That's actually where the recommendation for this topic came from, so check that out. But let's go really quickly again through this. Armor piercing, nope, does not work. Fatigue, this can work technically if you're using the Deadly Illusions, the Mega Mod, right? So normally this won't work because there's no roll to resist this immediately. But, you know, I would allow Fatigue to go on top of Deadly Illusions because Deadly Illusions can cause shaken or can cause damage, right? And how you would maybe trap this is, say I create, you know, this is just one example, but I would create an illusory scorpion with a big stinger that uses the attack that's just dripping with poison or venom, right? And when it attacks, does damage, I narrate that it just plunges into their chest and it pumps full of damage. Now, again, whether Fatigue can go on to things like Smite, that's up to your game master. So again, they might not allow this, but technically I would, if I'm casting illusory Deadly Illusion and like making it like something like a scorpion or making a poison cloud or something, and that would be risky because that would be, you know, once the poison cloud goes over somebody, then it would cause damage. But again, if you're using Deadly Illusion, anyway, sorry. So yeah, it's up to the game master, but in that case, I would allow them to do it, and because it causes damage, then it only would last until the end of the next turn. So it's pretty expensive for that. So personally, I would allow it, but your game master might not. So let's move on. Glow Shroud. Glow, definitely not. I mean, maybe they would allow it just to make it seem more real. You know, if you have like a bunch of like dragon lightning bugs or something, they might allow you to throw glow on just to make it harder to disbelieve. But really, it won't ever give any bonuses to you, right? None of this stuff will give any bonuses to people. But now Shroud is very interesting, and I would allow Shroud to work. How that would be, just an example, you cast a mist or clouds around somebody, and you put the Shroud modifier on it, and like over like an ally, right? And you could flavor this as like your illusion magic is so good that it's almost like, you know, you're almost like making it real in a way, like semi-real. There's semi-permanence to it, or it's just so believable. So what it would do is like it would confer Shroud's benefits onto somebody who was within that, like, say, you know, mist, right? Causing people to fire at them at -1. But now there's some drawbacks to this in that if somebody could just disbelieve it. Like if a wind came in and the clouds didn't move, right? They might roll to disbelieve. If somebody ran in to do a melee attack, they're going to contact it before they even get to the person, before they even do the fighting roll, right? So they're going to roll to disbelieve before they even get to it, and then the illusion would go away and shroud would go away. So I would absolutely allow it if somebody's being creative with it and making it make sense, and because there's just these drawbacks to it, right? Anyways, moving on. Heavy weapon, absolutely not. Hinder, hurry, kind of similar to glow shroud. I mean, hurry, just no way, Jose. Hinder, again, could apply to something like, say, an icy vortex or something, something like that, or like sticky, a glob, like a slime globule. I don't know, something that like would slow somebody down, right? But again, it's very risky because to actually have Hinder do something, it would have to be touching them. So even before the effects of Hinder happens, or the deadly illusion, deadly illusion is different, but like it would they get a roll to disbelieve it, and then the illusion would go away and Hinder would go away, right? And you could also say something like, so again, risky. Lingering damage, no. There's no actual rolls going in with deadly illusion. Range, 100% obviously. I mean, it applies to every power. And then this is extremely, even compared to other powers, this is big because illusion only has 5 smarts range, just base smarts. And with illusions, you're usually being tricksy, right? So you definitely want range because you want to be able to hide from something, do it far away so they can't see you casting. So range is gigantic. Put range in the actual, in your actual, like, if you're using like cards, in real life, then I would put it there. Or if it's a VTT, like, put it into your actual power because it's so important. And finally, selective, for sure. And now normally your other player companions, your other player characters will know that you cast illusions, so they won't really ever be a problem with them. But if you say you're like hiding, they don't know you're there and you're using illusions, or if it's like just generic, neutral parties or allied people that don't know you have illusions, things like that, then yes, you might want to cast selective. Now, normally it's in the area effect of the power. And so something like blast, so you could say that it's in the medium blast template or within the actual manifestation that you've created. But honestly, illusions, the area effect is seeing them, right? The whole point of illusions is like you see something far away, outside of yourself, and not on you necessarily, and it does its thing. So in my mind, the area effect of illusion is vision. So yeah, it would just be selective to everybody who can see it, right? Okay. Moving on. Let's talk a little bit about utilizing illusions. So here's where I talk about some of the strategies that goes in. First of all, I want to talk about the power of illusion when we're talking about illusions. So first, just what I mean by that is, the power of knowledge. Doing like research rolls or finding out like about the creatures you're going to be attacking or encountering, the environments, kind of about the history of places, really can give power to your illusions, make them more believable. So just as an example of knowing about what a creature's prey or predator might be, right? Knowing about what a certain faction's hated enemies are. So as an example, a couple of examples here, like I was in a game where I was an illusion character and we knew we were going to be facing some ogres, an ogre king who rode like this huge beast, like kind of was like a triceratops or something. And I did a research roll beforehand and found out that a drake was its apex predator that preyed on it. And so when we were in the game and fighting them, I made an illusion of a drake, and it was, the game master let it be much more effective because I kind of put that work in, and it just makes sense, right? It's going to be the mostly wary and mostly going to react to its natural predator. Like a faction, as an example, if you're kind of fighting at some holy order of knights or something, you're trying to sneak into to like a base of theirs, then, if you make a zombie and that that they're vowed to vanquish all undead with the utmost righteous fury, then creating a zombie is going to be much more effective to distract them or get them to chase the zombie away from you guys so you can get in. So utilizing knowledge here is huge, just making kind of informed decisions about your illusions, I guess. The second part here I want to talk about is making it seem real. And this goes back to my guard captain example. I talked about it a little bit, but yeah, you don't want to make things seem so out of place or weird. So summoning things just out of nowhere, right, is going to just trigger people off. Like summoning a person in front of them that they know can't teleport. Summoning just objects all of a sudden, just out of nowhere. Summoning things that, things are too out of place, like having a fire elemental in this like icy region, or in a place that there's tons of ice magic, or where there might be like an anti-magic, anti-elemental field, or whatever, right? So just making things that aren't too out of place that's going to cause people to disbelieve. And there's a lot of ways to get around beyond this, like summoning a creature, whatever, out of scene, right? Out of the view of the characters, like I said before, behind a wall, or having you or somebody else distract those people, so then you summon the creature behind them. An example of, like, if you want to summon like a pile of gold to do something, to distract somebody, or to get people to go after it. Just summoning a golden idol in the middle of the street is going to seem weird, right? But if you summon gold, like you pretend, or you have your party member pretend like they're going into their pouch and throwing it, right? That would then kind of narratively make sense now. You're kind of making like an A to B as far as narrative sense. You're making the world building of your little illusion more believable. So yeah, summoning the gold, like you're throwing it out, or having somebody use a cloak to like unveil a golden statue or a pile of gold, or even have something like having valuables come out of a window, something like that, right? Coming out of a window, or out of a rooftop. Just making the things that you're making make sense. So yeah, cool, yeah. And here I'm just going to give some examples. So, what? Oh. Sorry. Okay. Moving on. So this is going to be examples of illusions, and this is not being an exhaustive list. This is just some examples that I think are effective. So like I said before, making obstructions, making things to hide behind, like walls, trees, a wagon, right? Just things to obscure you. This could be for hiding behind people, for spying on people. Like if you use the fantasy mod for movement, right? You can create a big wagon that your whole party is like sneaking behind as you move across the scene. Kind of like what's his name? Silver Snake. I can't remember. But you're all sneaking behind this wagon as it's moving across. So very effective. Making fake ground, right? Fake bridges to lure enemies into hazards. So creating a fake bridge over just an empty space, so that dumb orc comes by and is like steps on it, and while they've contacted, they get to make a roll to disbelieve it, but that's while they're falling to their death. So it's a really fun thing to do, to make like illusions over traps, like pit traps, or you're blocking where traps can be, right? So yeah, very effective there. Creatures, again, I talk about creatures all the time, but to scare people, to lead dangerous predators away, to distract people, creatures are always going to be a go-to, even if you don't have the Deadly Illusion mod at your hands. Notable NPCs, exactly what I was talking about before. Having the guard captain, having a queen, having the judge, even having like the main chef at a restaurant, either to get past, either to like, distract people, to give you authority, right? Sometimes you could even be like, you could have just like the queen be like, hey, do whatever they say. And then the queen can then go away or whatever. And then for that, scene, you have this authority invested in you, even though your illusion's not sticking around, giving them a chance to disbelieve it, because they kind of just said their thing and then left. So yeah, notable NPCs is always a good stuff for social and narrative scenes. Also, like duplicates of your party members. This can be good to lead people away. This is also really good for if you're up to crimes. Maybe it can be justified or not, if you're actually evil or not. But if your party member's off doing a crime somewhere, make an illusory duplicate of them, sitting at the bar drinking, or just smoking, outside in a busy square or whatever, right? Just a really good way to have like an alibi. Strange phenomena that you can use to like help with social roles in some fashion. So what do I mean by that? Like somebody's making an inspiring speech and you're summoning, I don't know, little heavenly angels behind them with light, or just making like whatever. Or if they're intimidating somebody, right? You can make like insidious shadows that are reaching behind them, reaching out. Or if you know that these things like have an instinctual fear of spiders or bats, you're creating spiders crawling on their heads, coming out of their ears, right? You're not covering them up, but you're just kind of adding to that. And so it's a really good way to give support bonuses to people. And how I play it when somebody's spending the PowerPoint to do something like that and making a cool narrative thing, especially if they've done research about what the things might be afraid of or what they might be inspired by, then I would give a bigger bonus or give a bigger bonus to the actual support roll, so they can roll their arcane skill with a plus to that, or they just get a bigger support bonus, right? Like a +3 instead of a +2 or something. It just makes sense if they're spending PowerPoints to give them a bigger bonus. Cool. Treasure and gold. Never underestimate greed. It's always going to be a good thing to distract, and like I said before, to like get a bunch of crowd of people to block people, right, as they're trying to reach for the gold that's fallen. It's also a good thing if you want to just buy something you don't have the money for. Now, it's probably good. They're probably going to quickly find out, but yeah, just get out of there. Just put your gold down and get the hell out of there with your item. Here's a really favorite one of mine: a portable video or picture projector. So with illusions, you can make pictures of people from your memory or scenes that you've encountered, like a video, right? So this is really good for strategic sharing of info. So if you have to talk to say an investigator or like a guard or something about somebody that you saw that was doing a crime, or you're like, here's who we saw do the magic, or here's like the crime scene that we saw, or here's what we, here's the scene that we witnessed that had this person doing this arcane stuff, like, talking to the mage. Like, there's just tons of ways. This is just so good about sharing info with a variety of people. So Illusion's really, really cool for that. The second part here is like kind of like science fiction, Marvel, strategic battle or infiltration planning, kind of creating a holographic image of the building that you're, like the battlefield, right? With like moving things around, or the building that you're trying to break into, being like, okay, Shadowhawk goes here, and Steel Falcon is in the nest, or whatever, right? Like, you can just kind of like in planning sessions, it's a really fun narrative way to like have a lot of people outside of your party, even, right? The other generals, the other commanders, some mercenaries you're working with, kind of all be on the same page, ad hoc, right? Because you can just create your illusion. Another cool one is mocking people, belittling them using illusions. So, making like funny images, like as somebody speaking in a social conflict, you can make an illusion behind them of them, like, exaggerated features or saying stupid things or doing stupid things, right? Making deepfakes of people, if you want to pin crimes or just, get somebody out of the way, you can create an illusion of them doing a crime. This is also really cool for stuff like pro or against like political ads, right? Like, you could create commercials with illusions, kind of like, you could be on like a wagon with like, here's what this person said, and like showing them like, I don't know, like pushing a child or something, or taking money out of a candy out of a baby's hands. I don't know, or helping your preferred candidate out, if you're trying to get somebody elected. So just a cool way like to use illusion in that way. Second to last, replicating another power, like I said before, replicating the effects, but also like making it seem like you're a different type of caster. And this could be effective where you could pretend you're like belong to a certain clerical order, whether you're like maybe that that they'll be intimidated by like a fire mage, if they're like a bunch of plant people or something, then pretending that you're a fire mage by using illusions. Like, they can tell that you're a caster, and now that you've convinced them that you can control all this fire magic, right? So just cool to like throw people off the scent of like what kind of arcane caster you or somebody else is. And finally, I say storm environmental phenomena outside of Windows. It's just fun to use Windows in that way. Like, if you're inside of a building, right, creating the image of a snowstorm outside to keep people in for whatever reason. So it's fun to just play with perspective, I guess. It's not just Windows here, like doors, windows, whatever. It's almost like messing with security cameras in this way. So just, again, if you're in a building, it's just fun to put like scenes outside the window, because it's kind of like almost like even more constraints before, where, if you're making a projector of something, they know that you're casting illusion. But in this case, you can do like movies and make it seem real, because there's like a natural kind of screen with the window. So yeah, I know I went really fast and rambly here. I was really trying to keep it shorter, but I hope you liked it. If you watched this far, I hope you did. So again, this was Tabletop Tango. If you have topics like this, let us know, and happy gaming.
Savage World, one of the best games of the day. Savage World, Benny enhance my play. Oh, Savage World, different.